Hey everybody, Ryan Struck here. Today we'll learn how to combine creativity and photography into personal work. This right now is kind of like my way of bringing some people together. The response has been really awesome. Thank you everybody for sharing and sending, as well as being here. I think with what's happening right now, and I feel like that's just the elephant in the room, and I'll get it out of the way. With coronavirus is kind of like it can feel isolating, I guess, and like I said on Instagram, I was seeing some really weird headlines, and I was just like, it sort of it bothered me, in a way that when I feel bothered, I feel like inspired to do something. So it's if people, many of us here are creatives, and whether you're a full time professional, a part timer, a freelancer, or you just consider yourself creative and you work a day job in your home this week, or um, part of being a freelancer and creative is sort of having that time alone. And I think that we can, at least I can, get carried away sometimes reading headlines and the news, and it can be tough to figure out what to believe. And I just wanted to create a space here for all of us so that we have a place where, hey, oh yeah, wait, like being on your own is kind of cool, and yeah, maybe it can be lonely sometimes, but um, I want to show you all how that sort of feeds my creativity, and just sort of where I'm coming from in that regards. Uh, you know these these headlines, and I'm not pointing fingers, and they're just a little nutty, and I know personally, me, I can feel a certain way. Like I said, it really made me feel instantly bothered, I guess. And I wanted to put forward the way that I think and feel, and how I sort of, I guess, combat working on my own anyways. So this is going to be a place to foster that. I want to inject creativity into all of our lives, and maybe we can share some ideas, or maybe you take an idea from me. I see some of my mentorship students in here. Awesome. I'm stoked they're tuning in. And what I always tell them is that you don't have to do it exactly like I do. I just want to share my thoughts and, plug and play, like take what works from me that you think that you can incorporate into what you do, and drop the rest. Like not everything I do is going to work for you. And but my ideas here are hopefully to just inspire you to think a different way if you hadn't thought of it my way. And also, hey, I mean, I'm open to understanding things differently too from you all. That being said, um, I know some of you all have had some like pretty deep conversations with me also, even just through Instagram Messenger, and some through text, and I think we're all, in a varying different places. I myself had probably my busiest March lined up maybe since I started freelancing, and I've been a freelance photographer and director for about 6 years now. Um, I was just in California last month. I was out there for personal work, and I was excited to come back and work. I felt refreshed. And then with the coronavirus happening, everybody canceled events. I had 4 gigs lined up this month, 3 events and another like interior type of shoot, all canceled, all of them. Um, and it was disheartening, but I feel I'm in a good place to really sort of understand my career and who I am as a person, and I want to just share some of those tactics or techniques, as well as like just provide a place for us to dive in somewhere creatively. I'm not only personally affected or professionally affected, but personally, my mom lives in a nursing home, so there's a bit of worry there too. Especially just uh, there was that case in Washington. It was a hotbed. So it's all these things, and I know some of us have, like I said, shared some personal stories with me, and we're all worried to some degree, whether we know somebody or it can affect us personally, professionally. It's tough. That being said, I'm just gonna dive into here, I guess, my little spiel, and kind of the things that I feel like are really important for us to chat about now, especially in these times. I have a little bit of, let's see, I have some talking points here. just a couple notes for myself. Let me just pull them up. Just gonna go ahead and stop your video. Okay, cool. So I guess I just want to chat more about how do we fuel our creativity. I know for me, travel is a big thing, and like I said, I was away last month for the whole month, and I felt rejuvenated. I'm still feeling rejuvenated. I'm still feeling pretty refreshed, which is awesome. I'm super psyched on that. David actually asked via email yesterday, how do you find inspiration when you're not stimulated by new environments? And I felt like this was the most perfect thing, especially with everything that's happening right now. I think that my approach for reinvigorating my own work and who I am and what I like to see is using travel as a stimulus. So what can we do if we're locked down or we're in one place, or, this doesn't actually have to apply to just what's happening in current times too. Being somewhere is really just part of our life too. Like, right? Don't we live in apartments or houses or places? We're all tuned in here via the internet, so we must have some sort of stable place to be, right? So being anywhere at any length of time can feel stale. So maybe it's not a virus that keeps you in your own neighborhood, but maybe it's financial reasons, or maybe work, or you just, time constraints, or maybe you just don't know where to get started. I think the easiest thing to do is to just get out there and do it. And I know that sounds like such an overly simple way of putting it, but I'm in Rockaway actually this week, and I've lived here for years. I am such a fan of the beach. I've seen so many amazing different things when I first moved here, and sometimes it starts to feel like, oh, well, I've seen that already, or I've done that. I mean, my practice of kind of being a freelancer is, I think, allows me to move into the creative space. Part of being creative and getting new ideas and understanding who you are as a person who wants to create or make, I think, is understanding like how to set yourself up for your highest form. A lot of people do that many ways: exercise, meditation, eating well. I think establishing a morning routine is really, really great. It sort of sets you up for the day. So, I'm just going to take example of maybe some of you all are home. You're used to going to the office every day. You have to be there by 9 a.m., something like that. Probably I used to work, before I was a freelancer, I went to a warehouse. I used to work in a warehouse. I had like an office-ish job before that as well. I know the routine of being somewhere on time, and having to be in a place. The same could be said for freelance jobs. You have to be somewhere. And I'll admit, let's say if I'm booked on a shoot, I have to be there 8 a.m. My morning routine suffers a little bit, and that's okay. I think preparing for your best form is kind of what sets you up to sometimes like maybe let those things go occasionally. But I like to wake up, get up early, and I feel like maybe this stuff is like, oh, of course we know all these things, but I'd just like to reiterate it, so bear with me. But wake up early, have some coffee, tea, hot water with lemon, whatever you like to do. Find your routine, and my favorite thing to do is just get outside immediately. And I don't always get to do it. I'm definitely guilty of like waking up, my phone, maybe there's an alarm so I don't sleep too late. Or maybe I want to get up extra early, and maybe I see the notifications on my phone and I start scrolling. I get caught into that too, but I think really the best thing that you can do for yourself, especially if you're feeling a little creatively stuck or you want some new ideas, is to really just try and eliminate your distractions as much as you can, and really sink into your morning routine. Get outside and walk around. I bring a camera. I don't always shoot. And to that point, my phone is one of my favorite things to shoot with. You don't need all kinds of gear. You can bring a phone. I do like to have a dedicated camera. It sort of reminds me to stay glued to that. but it really doesn't matter. And that's why I wanted to have everybody of all levels here, really, because whether if you're shooting a point and shoot film camera, your iPhone, or the latest and greatest, digital mirrorless, it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that you're training yourself to remember that you love being out there seeing. You love being out there experiencing. I think that's what makes us all special in a certain way, or why we can connect and speak the same language, is because we all love living in that moment. We all love being there, and we all love pressing the button. Man, when you get a great photo, that feels so good. And I think that we maybe get addicted to that feeling, or we're used to having it, and we think it just comes. Like the creative flow, really, it ebbs and it flows. And I think that the more we're focused on it coming, is really makes the passage of time really slow down. I'm just gonna go into a little screen share here for you guys. I made just a little thing with a couple talking points I feel like it'd probably be useful for you guys to take a peek at. So sorry, here we go. All right, and this is like a PDF. I should have made a JPEG. It would have been easier for you guys to see, but I'll send this to you guys in an email afterwards. I mean, it's really for me, but it's a good thing for you guys to take a look at too. So creativity is fulfilling, emotional, it ebbs and flows. And basically what I'm talking about is how to prepare to receive or channel that creativity. We're all here because we probably have an interest in photography. But I think this sort of transcends your medium. I'm just going to relate it to photography exactly because that is what I love to talk about, and I could talk about it for days. And we'll move into like personal projects and the importance of shooting what you love and using the camera on hand. But creativity is an emotional and fulfilling endeavor that I think that we're all here to enjoy. And really, the whole point of this is to try and make sure that we're all moving in the space of allowing those ebbs and flows to happen. Sometimes we're working. I'm speaking from personal experience, and it's great to be busy, and it's great to have work, especially as like a freelancer. You never know when your next job is coming, and with everything happening right now, I'm sort of being taught that like not even those jobs that you book are a sure thing. So in that meantime, I think it's important for us to frame what it is that we love seeing, and maybe we're going to see something new. I would encourage you all to just move outside and bring a camera and just start looking at things. I mean, I've got a macro lens in my bag that sort of sits in there for those times when I'm like, I don't know, like, what am I really going to look at, or what am I really going to photograph? Sometimes I'll pull out the macro lens and I'll just walk around with it. It's a 90 millimeter. I put it on my camera and that's it. I don't bring another lens. So I'm just looking at things really close up, or sort of from like a medium telephoto distance. You can add these things to your life to kind of, or to your curative practice to really try and understand and push yourself in certain different ways. And working on a personal project is something that I've always heard about in the industry. It's something I've always read about. I myself consider myself sort of an outsider in the industry, or maybe an outlier, or I've always kind of had my eye on what's happening, but I didn't study photo, I didn't study film, and I've had to work my way into my network with elbow grease, just like everybody else, and what's interesting about the industry now is that maybe 20 years ago, there was certain people who were known as like the photographer in this area to do this work. Now, as I'm especially seeing, we have 24 people in here, including myself. We're from around the globe. There's people tuning in from the UK. There was some interested people in Japan. I think it's 1 a.m. there, so I don't know if they're going to make it. and then people from all around the United States too. So, and some of you guys I know, and some I don't. So I think that what's amazing about our industry now is that we don't have to rely or maybe even be edged out by these other people who sort of had a grip on everything. Um, and I really encourage you all to try and pursue this personal work. So, like I was saying, you know, it's something you always think about or read about or hear about, and I never sort of really knew what that stuff meant. I've been shooting probably, I guess maybe obsessively is the best way to put it, for almost 10 years now. And like I said, freelancer for 6. And it took me years. It probably took me 4 years to really get my first personal project together. Though I do consider surfing personal work, in a sense that I was pursuing that all on my own. I really wasn't getting hired often to do it, and the onus was always on me. It's something I love to shoot. It's something I still love to shoot, and I try and find certain stories in it that really interest me the most, and those are the ideas that I pursue. So I still consider it personal work, but really, I think what I want to let you guys know, like what I really would love to encourage you to do, is to just pursue what it is visually that really feels interesting to you. A lot of my personal work felt interesting to me, or like I would even laugh to myself when I was taking pictures of stuff. And I've had friends comment even saying like, man, like you can just sit there and like look at trash cans for a half hour. And, you know, it's weird. It may feel really weird. And maybe you're working on something right now that you're like, oh, I could never show that to people. And really the way my first personal project developed was I was out in the world. I was working for a company that leased advertising space in and around like mass transit. And I had to go and shoot professional photos as proof of installation. I would bring usually a 35 millimeter film camera with me to shoot personal work alongside. Man, I talked to everybody, all walks of life, people on the street, people like everywhere, like, you know, and I would sometimes, you know, talk to them and make pictures of them, or, you know, I would just shoot street stuff. It was a way that sort of kept me occupied while I was doing what I was doing, like for work, for a paycheck. And I was really self-conscious about sharing that collection of images. If anything, I look back on that work and I really feel like, dang, I wish I shot more. I shot a lot, but like, if I could trade like who I feel like I am now versus then, like I would have different photos. But I mean, that's the beauty of kind of evolving, I suppose, and working towards something that you really love. Because once you feel like you're somewhere, or you're in it, or you finished it, you get new ideas and you move forward. So let me just bring up an example of some of my work so I can talk to you guys a little bit about it. Let's share the screen here. Chrome. Okay, cool. So this is like my professional section. I have a project section. Let's go to the TVs. I have a project section here, and this is, as you can see, it's a little more free form. It's technically less perfect. This is like a 35 millimeter film photo that I shot. Like, I mean, if you want to get technical, I blew out all the highlights. I didn't expose it right, you know, but so what, you know, like it's definitely apart from my professional work, which is crispy, sharp, great lighting. You know, the personal work that you make is really important, because not only does it fulfill what you want to do, what you want to see, like where you want to go, without the rules or constraints of like, it has to look like this, it has to be this way. You know, our professional work, you know, in a sense, sometimes does have to be a certain way. It does have to look like perfectly exposed, or it's got to be the right moment, or, you know, you don't want anything too strange. But our personal work could be anything we want it to be. And for me, the TVs were sort of born out of just maybe my relationship with TV, you know, like it was just like an interesting way for me to look at it. And I just a part of me was always like, dang, like people like love watching the TV. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I'm like, wow, TVs are a really big part of our lives. You know, maybe our TVs look different now. I watch I watch like TV or movies usually on a laptop or like yeah, I guess probably on a laptop, you know, like it's just different, you know. People were throwing TVs out left and right. And I was just like really interested in the old school ones, you know, like remember the ones with like the rabbit ears and like, you know, like I remember seeing some ancient TVs and it was just interesting to me. And I kept this like I kept this under my hat. I didn't really tell too many people about it. Maybe if I had friends, and a lot of times I would see these TVs in the car. So like when I was driving to somewhere, um, and I would want to get out and like, you know, like maybe take some pictures, or sometimes that friend would be with me and I would say, oh, like, you know, damn, there goes a TV. They'd be like, yo, just get out and take the picture, whatever. It doesn't matter, you know? So I think personal work, there's a reason why it feels so close to us is because sometimes we can be self-conscious about it or can feel weird. But I think talking about it amongst maybe your creative friends or just whoever, I think that what that can really do for us is we can get a little encouragement from them. Um, as well as it gives you something to do, you know, like, and you may not have that idea right now of what your personal project wants to be or what you want it to be or what you want to say. And I'll admit a lot of times my personal work is just, I'm out in the world shooting. And then, you know, maybe I have a collection of images and I finally start to see, what does this mean? Or like, what am I shooting? And then I start to realize a theme. I start without having an idea. And that really is, I think, what fuels my creativity. I have another friend of mine, like a really talented photographer. He he starts with a plan and an idea, and he goes out and he knows what he wants to get. And I like so respect that. I'm like, wow, that's so awesome. So everybody operates differently. You know, everybody operates in a different capacity. I think the whole theme really is to just start, and that is the hardest like thing to do. And for me, I think sharing sometimes is the hardest thing to do. And that's I've learned to share what I'm doing a little bit more with people that I trust, and also people that I respect. Sometimes I'll be like, man, I don't know, I've been like shooting these garbage cans on the beach. And I actually showed a talented director friend of mine who, like, you know, I look at him and I'm like, oh wow, he's doing awesome stuff, you know, like, and we were hanging out on the beach one day and we're walking off the beach and I was like, oh, I mean, I've been shooting these, it was the summertime. I didn't have that much work. You know, summer's typically like August is pretty much dead. Everybody's on vacation. And I was like, I don't know, I've been shooting these TVs. They're kind of weird. And I showed him a couple photos in a Dropbox link I had. And he's like, oh, that's cool. And we're walking off the beach and we see a trash can with a boogie board with a shark on it. And like, he's like, look, you know, like, it was just like other people can get you excited about your work too. So what I don't want us to do is feel like we're alone or lonely or like just left with our own thoughts. I will admit a lot of that is really important. It is important to be alone and feel your own thoughts and understand like what you want out of life, out of work, you know, like, but don't be afraid to share stuff. The whole reason me making this is so that other people could sort of have a connection too. I'm always open to chatting, to seeing other people's work, to discussing it, you know. And sometimes we don't want feedback. We just want somebody to listen or just somebody to look. And I know me personally, it's always sort of heartfelt when I share something with somebody and they bounce back. I mean, I welcome criticism and I think that's important, but they bounce back with just a response or just like a, you know, oh, that's interesting. Or like, you know, just to have other eyeballs on it, you know, we can kind of get stuck just being on our own and doing our own thing, especially if we are quarantined or relegated to like the outdoors or our block. And I think the big takeaway here is to open up, you know, the conversation between us all. And the main point is just don't think about something so much. It'll start on its own. And for me personally, I like I said, my morning routine's really, really important. You know, it's to wake up early and to make myself a cup of tea or coffee, depending upon how I'm feeling, and get outside, bring a camera, walk around, come back in, stretch or meditate if I need it. I'm not going to be here to preach um, any one discipline on anybody, but if it's yoga, you know, you don't have to do it every day, but do it, stretch on your own. Meditation, if it's lifting weights, if it's just a walk, that's fine too. But I feel like that sets you up to have a bunch of me time. And that's where you get your ideas. I mean, with all of these things happening in the news and around the world, I was on a walk, I think Sunday morning. What's today? Tuesday? Yeah. So I think I woke up Sunday morning and I was like, you know, I had read the headlines. And like I said, I was sort of agitated by it. And I was out for my walk and like it sort of dawned on me. I was like, you know, okay, my work dried up this month. That's a financial burden. I don't know what's going to happen, but I could spiral into those negative thoughts. Also, I don't have a personal project currently I'm working on. I don't have one thing. So I could like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with myself? So I move into um, the ingredients that I know really, really help me. And I went on my walk. I've been walking on the beach in the morning and I don't know where it came from, but it just dawned on me. You know, it's just like you have your best thoughts in the shower or wherever. Like you have your best thoughts when you're not thinking about them. Just before I fall asleep, I have a lot of really great thoughts too. I feel like so. I've gotten into the habit of just opening my eyes and writing it down, whether it's on my phone or in a notebook. So I wanted to like put this thing together, and I don't know what it'll become. Maybe this is like a one-time thing. Maybe I'll do it weekly. But I think that or monthly. I think that adding the things into your life personally that will set aside some me time for you is great, and that's like a really wonderful thing that I'm really hoping is coming from all this, so that people can kind of learn from being with themselves. And I just want to remind you all that, you know, our creative brains, the reason why we do what we do, I think, is because we like to digest what we are looking at and thinking about, and we like to push it forward, you know. And and a lot of you were having frank conversations with me about the news and everything that's out there and how we're feeling some anxiety. And I think because as creative people, we're programmed to input, and we bring these things in and we try and process and digest them, and then we push them out. And we're used to doing that creatively, visually. Um, and I think that uh, that can be trying and difficult right now. So, you know, I'm just here to remind you all to find what it is that you really love, or maybe you're already aware of it, or maybe you're even a little insecure about starting that project, or thinking that's dumb, or, you know, whatever negative self-talk that you may have. I'm there. I'm not, I think as human beings you get there, and really I want to let you guys know that you can take this time now and use it in a positive way. Um, you know, I'm not discounting all of the thoughts and feelings that you have about what's happening. That stuff's really real, but much in that, like, meditation allows people to live in the moment. Man, our cameras, this is how I live in the moment. I stay in this thing. When I'm in that creative flow, nothing else matters. Nothing else is happening. And I think that, you know, I want to just remind you all that's why we're all here. Um, so I think it would be like a good time to maybe chat about anything else you guys are thinking about. The chat box is open. Let me just see here what other talking points I have. So, okay, so one thing, you know, what am I going to do to maybe combat the current times? And like I said, I don't really know. I know it's going to push me somewhere. And I'll probably become frustrated at some point and venture out into the world and use my camera as a release. Um, I'm trusting the process. And I know like we hear a lot of, I think what we're saying, what I'm saying right now, out there, you know, I know a lot of things that maybe I'm speaking about can seem trendy. I'm a natural skeptic and I'm late to the party on a lot of these things, but I think that really just understanding who you are, your your creative process, how it works is important. You know, and I speak about the outdoors and being outside a lot. My favorite way to digest input is being in nature. Is being, you know, I'm a social person, so like I'm not one of those people like I hate people like, you know, like what's the shirt that you see out there? It's like antisocial social club or whatever. That's not me. I love being around people. I love talking to people. I love talking to like strangers. I love talking to anybody, friends, whatever. Um, but I think the whole thing for me is that I like to be out in nature. I'm inspired by what I see and I let that digest into what I am without other like human input, because all of these human things can sort of cloud the way that we feel, and I feel it can cloud our creative energy and our creative flow. So it's important to unclog it and to just be out and look at the way that nature presents itself. I mean, it's my opinion that nature's pretty perfect, and I don't, you know, it's tough to use that word, you know, like what really is perfect, but we don't have the opportunity necessarily now to go out and experience things for inspiration that are necessarily man-made. You know, museums, movie theaters, even talking with friends out in the world. But we can pick up a camera and walk around outside and just look at things and shoot things. I mean, I shoot plenty of pictures that will never see the light of day. That like when I get home, I have 100 photos on there. 50 of them are like of a piece of sand or like, you know, something dumb that I'm just like, all right, well, I needed to be in that moment and it was really cool. And it doesn't translate as a picture, but it only makes me better to understand like what it is that I like to do. And like I said, it's a meditation. Not everything is always going to just like benefit you immensely. Just being outside and using a camera for me and looking at light is one of the most pleasing things that I can think of for myself. Um, so that's pretty much, I think, my spiel. That's where I'd like to really turn the tables. And if anybody has any input, you're free to unmute yourself, or you can chat here. Peter says you're combating it currently by educating us. Cool, that's awesome. Validating creative exploration. Heck yeah. I mean, creative exploration is what I live for. You know, I think that's what we're meant to do, just as human beings. You know, plenty of people say like, oh, you know, I wish I could take a picture, or, and I believe everybody is inherently creative. I'm guilty of saying, I wish I could draw, or I wish I could paint. I can, you know, I don't do it as well as other people I know, but I know if I focus, if it's something I really want to do, I can do it, you know? So, what I've learned is that I don't have a burning desire to be a painter or an illustrator, or an artist in that sense. But I do have a burning desire to be a photographer. I do have a burning desire to make pictures. That's how I feel my feelings. Amanda says, I think the portion where you talk about shooting with the need for perfection really hits home. Client work seems to put a lot of pressure on us for perfection, and that is really hard. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when I first started shooting photography, I guess I'm calling it seriously, but I started like just as a hobbyist. I was working, I was working in a warehouse at night. I was working like the midnight to, was it 8:30? Yeah, it was like midnight to like 8 or 8:30 or 8 o'clock shifts, or maybe it was till 9. It was something nuts. And and I got laid off from that job. And what I did though was I always thought about photography when I was on that like cherry picker, 40 feet in the air, like picking up boxes and putting them on the pallet and building orders. I used to fantasize about the pictures I wanted to make. And I used to like, I can still see the one picture that I've never really photographed, but that used to just burn that hole in my brain. You know, it was like, and I was really into surf photography then. And I really wanted to be that way, or I really wanted to like make pictures that way. And it was kind of like the driving force that kept me going. And I would go to the beach sometimes straight after work, which looking back on is probably a little dumb. You know, I should have went to bed. But man, I had so many visions of what I wanted to photograph, and I would get out in the water or I'd shoot from the beach and I wouldn't get what I pictured. And I was holding myself to like this unbelievably high standard, which I do believe helped me improve. But I would put myself through the ringer if I didn't make a photo that I loved. And all I wanted was one. I mean, I'm I think I'm simple to please with my own work now, because I'm like, man, if I get one picture, I'm really happy. I like, you know, but back then I was like, oh, like, you know, the water was this way, or there was a little spray, or like is covering their face, or it wasn't like picture perfect image. And what I was basing perfection on was such a false, really ignorant front. I was looking at surf magazines and I was looking at the perfect images that these surf photographers who traveled the world like 24/7 in search of perfect waves to make the perfect picture. And those are the ones that made the magazine. And I was trying to make those. And it's great to aspire to something great. But what I've really learned in my own personal work is to allow yourself a little room. You know, you don't have to beat yourself up. And maybe if you are, share some of these things with your friends. I don't love, like, I don't like, praise is like a thing that I don't necessarily need in my work. Don't get me wrong. It's really nice to have something received well. And when friends are encouraging, especially, like I said, somebody who you really respect, when they think positively about your work, that feels good. But searching for perfection is impossible. It's a game that you will always lose. So allowing yourself the freedom in your personal work, I think will help your professional work. I want to get a perfect shot for my clients too. I really do. And I really enjoy making my professional clients happy, because at the end of the day, I am a people pleaser. I like when people are happy and satisfied with what they do. Or with what I do. That's like one of the most rewarding parts I think about being a professional photographer, is like, hey, I got the right image for you guys. You're stoked. I went above and beyond, or you didn't know that this was going to happen and it did. I think that, so I think putting that pressure on yourself is maybe more at play than you may realize with client work. You know, I think it's important, and it's an important line to walk and balance that we all need to have, because man, if we didn't care about what we produced for our professional clients, like, we would never get hired again. Like, you know, I think it's that pursuit of great images is obviously what gets us hired, or what will get us hired. And the other thing that, just to jump back to personal work, what that stuff does is it shows a potential client or a current client what you're working on. You may think that, and I mean, I fall down this rabbit hole all the time. Like, and I'm working on becoming better at it, but I will think for people. What do they want to see? I've been shooting a lot of planes in the sky. I don't want to show people that. It's like, who cares? Don't people want to see that I'm working? Don't people, like, you know, I'm obviously talking in reference to social media, you know, but don't potential clients want to see that I'm doing all these things? I think really at the heart of our work is our creative heart, I guess. It's really what we're doing that's making us happy, and putting out into the world. Like I said, we're taking that inspiration in, we're using our camera, we're digesting it, and we're streaming it out to the world. At least I hope we're all sharing our work often, and enough. And for each person, it's different. Like, you don't have to be out there every day. That's not what I'm saying either, but creating that personal work and that pleasure and that joy and fulfillment is really what's going to attract good things to come your way. The only way that I've ever really made a career for myself was because I was so obsessed with getting that perfect photo of a surfer or of a wave or of a destination. And I just wanted so bad to like see the most beautiful moments in surfing, and without realizing it, I think that's a beautiful thing to share with people. And I was just making these images because I wanted to many times. I mean, I did have these ideas of I want to be published and I want, to travel the world as a surf photographer. And I got to do parts of that, but I genuinely loved shooting surfing. I genuinely love shooting surfing still. So pushing that personal work out towards the world is really, it's like, it's like a circle and it's a cycle and it'll come back. Wendy's saying or asking, what feedback have you gotten on your personal work from your clients? So here's something interesting. That's a great question. Maybe it was like 3 years ago or so, 3, 4, something like that. I had an agency get in touch with me. They're UK based, and they got in touch. The basic premise was they were launching an application, a travel application, and they were bringing in a European celebrity to go to New York. And basically the job brief was photograph lifestyle pictures of this person in and around New York, visiting hotels, traveling, just basically like the lifestyle of like tourism in New York of this famous person. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And it was interesting. It was like a 2 or 3 day shoot. I was going to shoot stills, and they had a video team coming to document also. And during my creative call, you exchange pleasantries, and I always ask how people found me, or what is it about my work that you really loved, or how come you think, however you'd like to phrase it. And I asked how the person from the agency found me, and she said she saw my personal work, which was titled In Transit. And it's that same collection of images that I was telling you guys about, that I photographed in and around mass transit. I felt so self-conscious to put that work out. The way that I felt before I was like, nobody's going to get this. This is so weird. It's so strange. I just felt like self-conscious about it, and looking back on, I like that work a lot. I've since taken it off my website, but I'll send it to you guys. I'll put it in a link so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I recently only just took it off my website. And that's the one thing, her feedback on that, the reason why so basically I didn't get the job. It went to somebody else, which is fine. That's how it goes. Jobs are usually getting triple bid, things like that. I've learned to not be so emotional about pitching. And, but like that one feedback there, I literally just took that work off my website maybe a month or 2 months ago. And I was like, that one person told me they love that work. Am I going to miss out on jobs? But I just felt like it wasn't the right, maybe it'll come back to my portfolio, but I'm trying to simplify right now. And I'm sort of in the process of reevaluating my portfolio. But yeah, so that was pretty rewarding. And yeah, so Jamie, I'm interested in, once you have the raw photos that you love, where do you take it from there, like in post-production? So raw photos, maybe I'm being overly simple, But raw photos, put them on an external hard drive, 100%. Put them on there and make sure you back them up. Like before I get into the post-production part, let me just give you a little sad story. This past fall, I had a hard drive go down. It was acting funny, and I should have really been more proactive. It was acting funny. I didn't have lots of work on it, but it was like 1.5 terabytes. Some of it was backed up. Some of it wasn't. A lot of it was personal work. Some of it was like some of my most favorite images I've shot here in Rockaway. And dang, I lost it all. So post-production starts with a hard drive. Download your card, put it on a drive, and then copy it to another drive. Just do it. I know it's expensive, but I paid $900 or $800 to send the drive out and get it evaluated. And they recovered like no photos. Like when I mean no photos, like I don't even know if I got 100 raw files back. Like it's kind of heartbreaking, you know, but I learned my lesson the very hard way. So that's where I start with post-production. But I bring them into Lightroom, and I think what's also great about personal work is that you don't have to deal with these images right away. And remember to give yourself a break. My TV series, I just would add to a collection and I would just dump it. I'd know I had it, and like I would put it in this little thing, but I really didn't put the finishing touches on post-production and sequencing and adding it to my portfolio until I put it on my website. You don't always have to edit your images, especially ones you're shooting personally, because there's no deadline. A lot of times when I'm working for clients, they have a fast turnaround, especially if it's an event, they want photos right away. Totally makes sense. So I can get them a same day edit, a 24-hour edit, whatever. So you have to be able to work quickly. Lightroom definitely enables you to do that. I have some presets for that. I've shown a bit of that process in my mentorship class. But yeah, personal work, I would encourage you, put it on your 2 hard drives, and you don't have to look at them. Don't put that pressure, because you emotionally felt a certain way about what you just went and photographed in the world. And I think a way that I've used to combat that feeling of like trying to make something perfect is I give it some time and I let it breathe. Don't get me wrong. There's certain times when I'm really excited to see a picture that I'm like, I know I got one, and I'll pull it right off the hard drive right away, put it on my phone, put it on Instagram, whatever. I'm right there too. But remember, like, you can just put that stuff on ice and revisit it next week or a month from now or 6 months. I think the important part is to shoot. And right now, that's like an amazing thing to do. Get out in the world, shoot, socially distance yourself, but just start amassing that work, and if you do like to see it right away, then do it. But don't forget that you can revisit things, and that's a really important part of post-production also. Riley, you're honestly my work. I'm my worst critic and so nervous to share my work. To know you get the same doubts makes me feel it's normal. I can work on trusting myself. Yeah, I mean, I get those doubts often, and like I said, I'm my own worst critic, and I'll bet that most of us in here also are the same way. We're striving for something great, or we didn't get what we wanted. I think that resolving to have a good morning routine is something that has really helped me, because it allows me to have that space for myself. I do my best to eliminate distractions. It's very tough, especially as somebody who has to be connected to their email or social if I'm posting. But creating that space for yourself in the morning, and like I said, plug and play my advice here. Maybe you're a nighttime person. Looking back on the way that I used to edit photos, and sometimes it still happens, I will dive into like my portfolio late at night. Like everything's quiet and everybody's asleep. And I mean, I'm an early bird. I love getting up early in the morning. I love going to bed early these days, but occasionally I'll get into things like pretty late. And it was a Saturday a little while ago, earlier this year, and it was like 9 p.m. And I was looking at a bunch of other photographers' work, just like seeing what other people were doing. I was on my computer. Let me stipulate, it wasn't in the Instagram hole, which can be like detrimental. I was looking at their portfolio sites where their best images live. And I was looking, and it motivated me to be like, oh man, I need to revisit my portfolio. It was 9 p.m. on a Saturday. And I probably spent 2.5 hours just like diving into what I was going to do, and like what I was looking at in my own work. And I started playing with things on my own portfolio site. And it set off like probably like a week or 2 weeks of just like me being like really critical, but in a healthy, good way. I felt really great about it, of my portfolio. And that's where some of these changes have been coming from. But I think, allow yourself to be imperfect. Like nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect. There is no best picture. Though there's plenty of awards for them. I don't think that, beating yourself up over what you're doing is helpful, and to just be able to allow those thoughts to pass through you. They don't have to land and stick. You can validate them, like, okay, those are real thoughts I have, but that's not who I am. And I've been starting to frame my own thinking about photography, about life, about personal actions. I think reframing can do wonders for you. Erica, a suggestion for this once over might you find in real life camera communities, collectives, clubs. There's a bunch in New York City, and they're also helpful feedback prints. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and Erica has she's got a camera club. I forget all the details, but I can pass that stuff along too to everybody. Thanks for bringing that up. Also, I think like in real life, chances and opportunities to get together are awesome. Obviously, we'll all have to wait a little while. And that reminds me, like I had a meetup with my mentorship students, and I wound up canceling it. It's just the safe thing to do. But yeah, I'm going to keep in touch with everybody. I'll keep everybody posted on what I'm up to, and as well as what everybody else is up to. But yeah, there's so many other thoughts. A friend of mine who told me a friend of hers was like doing a print swap, and friends of mine from California have done print swaps. There's so many cool ideas that I think we can kind of get into. Like we can all, I don't know, like go out for a drink or coffee, bring prints, and like we can trade them. There's so many ideas, and I think having a photographer community is something that I necessarily didn't really have. Like I said, I didn't go to school for it. I don't have like this this extremely tight-knit group of photographers, believe it or not. Most of my friends are not photographers, and it's awesome to speak the same language with everybody. And yeah, Amanda's also saying, yeah, we have some in DC. Cool, I'll get those. She's given some social things here. You guys can write these down, or I'm gonna recap everything in an email for everybody too, as well as I'm gonna put this online, just for some people to catch up with, and some people couldn't make it and we're really bummed. But yeah, I just I'm grateful everybody showed up and is inputting some things here, and yeah, I'm happy to host this. And like I said, I'll debrief everybody again, and maybe we can kind of keep meeting, or maybe it can be a monthly thing here. I just don't want anybody to feel like they're alone. And like I said, solitude is fuels our creativity, but I think there's a fine line, and sometimes it's a balance. And some of you guys have reached out to me privately, and we've talked about like all kinds of stuff. So I want to keep it going, and I feel like I want to be a champion of creativity for everybody. And I don't want you all to feel like maybe you don't have a lifeline, or I don't know exactly, I guess, what I'm not finding the right words, but I know that photo is one thing that's unifying all of us here, and I think it's great we got together. So if anybody's got anything else, please, I mean, I'm here. Like I said, I got nowhere to be. I'm chilling. If anybody's got any questions, you guys can reach out to me privately also. That's totally fine. But feel free to jump in if anybody's got anything. Yeah, sharing photos and chatting. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, monthly challenge. Yeah, I thought that too. Um, yeah, thanks, Lauren. Thanks for showing up. Cool. Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. I'm gonna let this stuff marinate, and I want you all to let it marinate too. Please send any and all ideas my way, and I'll kind of summarize and come up with a few things and figure out a way that we can kind of keep this going, because I think it's really helpful. And I think we're all here because we're looking for that creative frequency. Yeah. Thank you everybody for showing up. Yeah, appreciate it. Cool. Awesome. Sweet. Yeah, thanks for showing up. Thank you everybody. Cool. Super grateful. I'll talk to you all soon. Please don't hesitate to get in touch, and have a great week. All right. See y'all.